last night was certainly interesting. It has to be said. I think, as our first foray into we got to see relatively a lot, albeit from a competitive aspect, we didn't necessarily get to see any of the stuff that we're going to be playing, of course. Although you don't know what's going to happen with 2v2s, that sort of thing. Obviously, you can imagine you're going to be playing it through the game, but you can't imagine it's going to be part of the competitive side of things. But we got a really, really good look at Modern Warfare last night, albeit not a great deal of expansion. As said, in the normal game, mostly this is just the 2v2, but we got to grips with how it's going to run, how it's going to feel, etc., etc. So basically, we're going to have a run through in this video of what I liked about it competitive wise, and addressing some of the concerns that some of the community had. Just as a disclaimer, I absolutely have not been paid by Activision to say this or anything like that, and I haven't played the game personally. All I've seen of it was last night's stream, of course. I watched it through TP's stream just because I was expecting him to put on a clinic. What went on there? Come on, Teep. I'm expecting you to be smoking these fools. I know that Jack is a serious detriment, considerably weighing you down there, but has to be said, I did expect him to do better. But either way, I wanted to watch it from TP's point of view because he is notoriously, obviously, a former world champion, high-level streamer, very, very good player. For me, I would have expected him to do a lot better against these guys, but didn't necessarily do as well as I thought. But first and foremost, obviously this is based off what we've seen in the 2v2. I went on and watched one of Drifter's videos as well, and he explained what he did when he played it as well. And some other little things that he delved into that I can share here, obviously, because he's already said it. I'm just going to speak briefly on the 2v2 mode. I think it's really cool. That'll be really good just to go and play it against each other. Specific maps for it. Obviously the classes, everyone's got the same, so it's like a level playing field, etc. Really like the look at the maps. I thought they looked really, really nice, which leads me on to the point of, outside of competitive play and everything, the game looks stunning. Holy shit. It is very pretty. I think, from what you can see, it's a new engine from the movement, of course, but at the same time, from the graphics as a whole, they were absolutely fantastic. So really looking forward to seeing what it looks like on a full scale. Interested to see how high it does go on PC, because I'm sure these guys were playing on PlayStation, of course. But really interested to see how it's going to look on PC in the years to come, or when it comes out, of course. But yeah, let's move into it. Let's move into the biggest concern that was really surrounding the community last night, or one of the biggest concerns, was the introduction of no minimap. Now, this isn't confirmed from the whole game. There's a lot of rumors to say that, this might be the case for the full game, but there was no minimap inside this 2v2 mode, at least. So a lot of people were sort of saying, well, how does this work in competitive, etc. For me, I don't think it's that big of a deal not to have a minimap in. Immediately when this rumor came out, a couple of months ago now, I was sort of like, well, yes, okay, it's what we know. We've always had minimaps, but what is a really good argument for it? I think that, Benson really put it nicely last night on Twitter. A lot of people saying, oh, no minimap, but they're not backing it up as to why it's a bad thing. Yes, okay, minimaps are part of COD and always have been, but they aren't essential. They are an aid, and that's all they all ever have been. And yes, okay, looking at your minimap and everything is an important thing to do, but for me, it doesn't necessarily bring any extra skill having that minimap in. Yes, okay, you need to look at your minimap a lot, but taking that out of there is really going to make a difference, I think, in terms of, players are going to have to comm a lot more. We're going to definitely have to see better awareness from teams. I think the only good argument, I want to say it was maybe Bevels that said this on Twitter and replied to Ben, was the fact that a minimap is potentially needed because of how hectic 5v5 can be, so you can at least get a good idea of where people are coming from. But for me, this game seems a lot of a slower pace than we're obviously seeing in Black Ops 4, which is lightning fast, arguably one of the quickest Call of Duties we've ever played. With it not being this quick, I don't think it's going to necessarily be an issue of it being too hectic. The TTK and everything looks relatively normal, not too long or anything. So I think that, for me, I think the minimap in there, I'm not overly concerned personally. Let me know what you think in the comments, of course, because, I think it's splitting opinion. But for me, I think having no minimap makes it a bit more skill. You have to at least have that comms there. It has to be perfect. You can't just be relying on the game telling you where somebody is, if you like. So for me, I'm not too concerned at the fact that there's no minimap. Of course, if that transitions into the normal game, it's expected to, then yep, we'll see how it goes, etc. It's a big change, of course. How it plays out, I'm not too sure, but for me, as said, I'm not too concerned about the whole no minimap thing. I think we will adapt to it. Number 2, let's talk about the guns. Now, it sounds like there's a shitload of them, to be honest with you, so that's going to be really good to see, and maybe see a bit more of a variation than we do normally. But one of the big things is it sounds like there's a shit ton of attachments as well. A lot of attachments going on. I mean, realistically, the first gun that we've seen them bring up was the FR556. I'll bring that up on screen now if I remember. I'll bring it up on screen now. And obviously this is from TP's stream. Shout out to him. Go follow him and subscribe if you like as well. Has a lot, doing really well. Nice to see. Either way, we'll talk about the FAMAS. So it had 4 different attachments on it. It didn't have the iron sights listed as an attachment, of course, but you can see the CQB grip, obviously close quarters grip, presumably good for close quarters. The laser sight, muzzle brake, and extended mag. Now, that's quite a lot of attachments on there, quite a lot of different ones. We've seen so many different ones throughout this game, and I'll bring up a few separate screenshots of it. There was one called the long slide on a pistol. I don't know if that's it's to do with the slide of the barrel, or if it's just a case of it lets you slide more. I don't know why that would be an attachment on a weapon. But yeah, there's a lot of attachments. There is a lot of attachments. There's been things to do with, I think I've seen different weapons have different barrels, different stocks, which will then enhance the way that they work, etc. Like a shorter barrel will make it better close quarters, etc., etc. And I think we'll talk about movement and pace after this as well, because it's a lot to do with the weapons as well. Is the fact that the ADS on the ARs seemed really slow in comparison to the SMGs. But for me, this is good. You don't want the ARs to be able to snap in up close and personal. ARs are typically known for long-range combat, and that's where they will excel, whereas the SMGs look like they took quite a while to kill, but the ADS was really quick. So it looks like they are really going with a big range of different things for weapons in terms of yes, okay, your ARs... Essentially what they're doing is they're making it so each weapon category has its purposes, and they are defined purposes by the looks of things. Outside of attachments, of course, you'll be able to attach other things to make these weapons better in certain situations, but the defaults of them look like ARs are good for a long range, not so good up close. SMGs are really good up close, not so good at range. Shotguns seem to really fall off at range. TP was doing really good work with that shotgun up close and personal. So the weapons for me, yes, okay, they always change before the game does come out. But the balance, I like the direction they're going with it. Whereas I said, AR's strong at range, SMG's strong up close. So that's how it should be. There shouldn't be a case of, right now, where the Maddox is just powerful across the board. We're not necessarily going to have that, I think, with this game. It does seem as if the weapons are really opposite ends of the scale on where they need to be. So, just a couple more of the attachments I've seen fast up on the SMG. I'm sure I would have already brought that one up. But that's another thing where, there you go, that's the ADS, probably going to be it's quick draw, essentially. So, yeah, I think, they're going to make these weapons... The reason that there's so much recoil, that sort of thing as well, is sometimes you didn't see grip on some of the weapons. There's so many different things to delve into in terms of attachments and what attachments are going to be available on what guns, etc. Either way, I'm not concerned about the guns, and a lot of people are talking, as we move into my third and final point, about the movement and the pace. Now, there was a lot of gun wobble, that sort of thing. That could be to do with attachments. Another thing as well, so Drifter played the game on PC when he was at the Activision Studios, and he said motion blur, film grain, and camera wobble could be disabled on the PC version. I'd imagine this will make its way into the console version, as said. So I think that eliminates a lot of this clunky feel that a lot of people were saying, that, it looks like Battlefield, that sort of thing. But, I think that does eliminate it. When you see it, you're seeing it sort of like the weapon bob about, and it doesn't seem like smooth Call of Duty. But if you can disable all of these things, you can make these your personal preference. I mean, I personally played a little bit of Battlefield as well. You can do all these things on this. A lot of COD players maybe perception of Battlefield that it is slow and clunky, but you can make it quicker. And it's presumably going to be the same with this one. And bearing in mind, obviously, these classes have been randomly set up to a point. They're not necessarily going to be set up how we're going to be playing it, how we're going to be playing it, how the game's going to even be released in October. It could be completely different. So I'm not too concerned about that, because you'll be able to change some things. But I think, as time went on, TP started to get more into it. The movement became a little bit better, a little bit more fluid. So it's maybe a case of just getting used to it as well. It's either way, it's a big change in a lot of different respects. But overall, the pace of the game did look a lot slower. We did see tacticals look really, really good. We've seen Legion and Syndicate I don't want to say overused them, but they used them well, in fairness. And I think that realistically they look very, very strong. So we'll be interested to see what's going to go on in terms of tacticals. But that's good to see them come back in a big way. It looks like they're going to actually be able to be used. It's not a case of these things recharging, etc. You're going to get them on each life. So a bit more tactical from that point of view. The pace is going to be much lowered. And I think this was another one of the big arguments for last night, saying the pace looks really slow, etc. But for me, I'm really looking forward to that. I don't know if it's just because I am nearly 30 years old, mid-20s, I'm 27. If I'm nearly 30 years old, and I think for me, a slower game would suit my gameplay personally, just because I grew up playing like COD 4, slower games, etc. It's one of these things where I also feel as if slower games, you get rewarded more for the better players. Like, whereas in Black Ops 4, sometimes you can get away with bad players because you're just cracked and you're snapping onto people because the game's so fast. You get a few monsters down you and you're flying. So I think that there's that aspect of the game isn't necessarily going to be there anymore. It's not all going to be about challenging and flying, shot punching. It's going to be more about thinking about what you have to do. It's a very positional game. I think X put up a few tweets last night as well, just to say that, he's happy with how it seems to have moved. He was complaining about the movement looking a little bit clunky, but I'm not too concerned about that, as said. But the pace of the game in general looks a lot slower. It looks a very, very different Call of Duty to the one we've been playing for years, and I'm not mad about it at all. Overall, I really enjoyed the stream, and I really enjoyed what I've seen from the game. I'm very, very hopeful for it, in all honesty. I think that we've seen some good things, and it's not even the full release yet. So I'm interested to see the full release, of course. I'll be interested to play it as well. I don't know when I'll get a chance to. I doubt they'll have anything at Champs because the well, actually, it's not the question. I suppose the multiplayer announcement is the 1st of August and Champs is mid-August, so I might get a chance to play it there. Who knows? But I'm really looking forward to having a go of the game. Really excited to see something else come out. Apologies for the WhatsApp noise coming in. The chat is that not it's a Facebook noise? God damn it, guys. Either way, but really excited for the game. Looking really, really good for me so far. I'm just excited to see something of a different pace. We'll see these slower guys really excel next year based on what we've seen so far, whereas these quick SMG crackhead type of players aren't necessarily going to be at the top. I think it's going to be about smart. It's going to be about positioning. And I'm really interested. I think it's going to be great for competitive. We've needed to mix it up for some time, and it seems as if they really have thrown everything in the mixer. Let me know what you think of Modern Warfare below. How do you think it's going to look competitively? What do you think about the minimap situation? It's very much a 50-50 across the board with a lot of people, although I would say most people are really against the idea of no minimap. But for me, I'm fully in the I'm not really bothered, and at the same time, I think there's positives to not having one, and I just think it's a discussion to be had. What do you think of the weapons? What did you think of the movement? Are you loving it? Are you hating it? If so, tell me why. I'll respond in the comments below as well. Hope you liked the video, guys. Hope you're looking forward to Modern Warfare as well. Leave it a like, comment as said. Share it if you like. Subscribe would be lovely as well. And we will see you guys for the next episode.